Thank you. Welcome, everybody, for this is the first meeting of the Clean Water Services Audit Committee. And so welcome, everybody. Thank you once again for your interest and all the knowledge you're going to bring to this committee as we go through the audit process. I want to start out with maybe doing introductions around the room. I'll start. So I'm Kathy Leader. I'm the Chief Financial Officer here at Clean Water Services. I've been here about 18 years. I'll pass it to Pete.
You've got it. Hi, I'm Pete Parmentier. My day job is I'm actually the Director of Internal Audit and Enterprise Risk Management at PacifiCorp, and I'm also on the Washington County Audit Committee.
Scott?
Sure. Hi, I'm Scott Winkles. Yeah, I'm a clean water I'm in Tigard, so Clean Water Services ratepayer, and I've also spent in the last 19 years working at the League of Oregon Cities in one of my issue areas. Well, some of my issue areas are government ethics, municipal operations, and tax and finance matters.
Welcome. Julie?
Sure. My name is Julie Desimoni. I am a managing principal at Baker Tilly. That's a mouthful to say because I've only been saying it for a couple of weeks. It used to be Historical Moss Adams. We merged on June 3rd with the Baker Tilly brand. I lead, so I'm the managing principal on your account. I also lead our energy and natural resources for the combined firm. So I've been working in the space for about 26 years and spent my entire life in utilities.
Thanks.
Work life.
Sometimes they blend. Jerry?
Hi, everybody. Jerry Willey, Washington County Commissioner and Clean Water Services Board of Director for District 4. And I've been Michelle's supervisor for a long time. So just to let you know, we've got a little history. So anyway, good group. This is an impressive group. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thank you. Bruce?
I'm Bruce Corden. I've been at Clean Water Services for almost 35 years. Worked in a lot of different parts of this organization as I've worked my way up the ladder. Until recently, I was the Business Opportunities Manager. Now I work in our legal department, and I am the Regulatory Compliance and Audit Manager. So that's audit writ large, all forms of compliance and performance auditing. And so I'm really looking forward to looking at this financial stuff.
Thank you, Bruce. And Michelle?
Hello, all. I'm Michelle Waring, and I think really, Jerry, I supervise you. I mean, let's be real.
You tried to, that's true.
I tried. It's like herding cats. I work for the city of Hillsborough. I've been with Hillsborough for 18 years, and I've been in the public local government sector for almost 29 years. And I've worked on audits here at the city of Hillsborough in the past.
You're welcome.
Yeah, and I think just if I could backfill just a little bit, Kathy, sorry to interrupt you.
Yep.
The reason I was giving Michelle a bad time is I was mayor of Hillsborough for 8 years, and so we interacted a lot. Prior to that, I spent 32 years in the public accounting industry, not in the audit side, but on the tax side. So I've got a lot of history there too, and I'm very happy to join this group.
And E, can you speak? No. Okay, so E is my executive assistant here and is helping to monitor this meeting and take minutes for all of us here. So and she helps coordinate all this for me. She does a great job. Couldn't do this without her. So thank you. Well, so on the agenda, the first piece of business is the election nomination of the chair and vice chair for this committee, and they would be acting in this position for this first year of our committee. So do we have any nominations for the chair and vice chair?
I can self-nominate for the vice. I don't know that I'm ready to do the lead on this.
Kathy, can anyone be the chair? So if I nominate Jerry, Jerry, come on, you know how to run a meeting.
No, no, I'm the elected. Kathy, I don't think I can be chair
Oh.
because I'm on the board of directors. So sorry.
Oh.
If we could go through sort of the the mission of this group first, maybe then we could decide on who would fit that role. If that's, I mean, does that work?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So the chair for this position would basically manage the meetings. We usually hold 2 a year. This one that we're in right now, that's it's usually before the interim audit, but this time around it's a little bit after the interim audit. And then there's a second meeting where we meet to review the findings of audit as the committee. And the committee itself is acting as that liaison between the management, the audit firm, and the committee itself, and reports to the board their recommendations and their acceptance of the audit findings. So really during the meeting itself, just managing the overall meeting and calling for the vote on any actions that come up during the meeting.
Scott, are you interested? Or I'm fine being chair or vice chair or just hanging back. Anyone? So I think it's the three of us.
I'd nominate Michelle just to return the favor, but also because you'd be a good chair. And I think the role is probably Kathy's going to take a lot of the lead on organizing this. So not a real heavy burden. So yeah, I'd nominate you, Michelle, for chair.
Thanks, Jerry.
Okay, so we have a nomination for Michelle Waring as chair and Peter Parmenter as vice chair. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Any discussion? With that, I'll take a vote. All in favor of nominating Michelle Waring as chair and Peter Parmenter as vice chair for this first year of our committee, say aye.
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 And any opposed? Nay. All right, it goes unanimously. So I will put the agenda back over to Chair Waring for the event. And with that, I'll start it. So we put the agenda together. I'm going to it goes over then to Julie Desmano to talk a little bit about the audit this year.
Perfect. And feel free as I'm going through this, this is really for your information. So I'm happy to stop at any time or explain anything further as you like it. So we do have a set presentation just talking about the audit process. Want to let you know, 1, where we're at, 2, where we're going, and 3, when it'll end, and help out with that whole timeline of events. So starting with it, do you all have a copy of the agenda as well? Okay, good. Then I won't have to read everything off of it. But the first section is the audit deliverables. So you have quite a few audit deliverables. We're here to audit the financial statements of CWS. It's important for this audit committee to understand that we don't look at every transaction in CWS. What we do is we do a risk-based approach. And take a look at the high risk. We take a look at a lot of other sections other than just the high risk, but spend quite a bit of time in what we consider our high risk areas. But we also audit with a concept of materiality. So what materiality is, if you haven't been with a financial statement audit, it's where an ordinary reader of the financial statement would make a different decision upon those financial statements. And they do say ordinary, not everybody, but ordinary person. And so it's important to note that that's both a quantitative and a qualitative assessment. So we always, we're accountants for CPAs. Jerry, you like numbers, I like numbers. We all like numbers, spreadsheets. We have a love-hate relationship with, I think, with spreadsheets, but we have a number that we come to. Our number and our assessment is not something I can tell exactly the management team and the audit committee. That's internal. But how we assess that number is we really look to your income statement. And the reason we look to your income statement is because you've got a really, really big balance sheet because of a lot of assets that have been put in the ground over many, many years. And so there's a lot of historical amounts sitting in that balance sheet where your income statement is your rates today. It's what's going on with your rates. It's what's going on with your expenditures. So we drive our number that's probably traditionally a little bit lower than some other sectors have their numbers. But we also have something called a qualitative assessment. So if we learn things during the course of the audit that are qualitative in nature, we don't just ignore them because they have a small number. A good example of this is we just had this last year, not on the CWS audit, just FYI, this is a different audit. But we were looking through a reconciliation and found a line item of only, it was only $500, but it was $500 and it had written next to it as an explanation fraud. Well, anytime we see the term fraud, we're going to follow up on it because we want to understand what's going on. It was actually fraud on their bank account that happened that the bank was paying them back for. So easy explanation. But that just because it was $500 and we had millions of dollars of materiality didn't mean that we were going to stop there. So we assess both this quantitative and this qualitative assessment to get us to where we need to go on the audited financial statements. We will be giving you an opinion on those basic financial statements. I will say if we've got any new readers of these financial statements, please don't blame Kathy or I or how long they are. There's a lot of requirements by the Governmental Accounting Standards Board that I think a lot of people would either agree or disagree are relevant to financials, but we have to put them in there because the standard setters require that to be the case. So we are pretty prescripted in a lot of ways on these financial statements, but again, those financial statements are important and it's a solid set of information for any reader of the financials. We also have to do what we call our Oregon minimum standards report. So because you're an agency within the state, within Oregon, there's about 11 different compliance requirements that we have to add and bolt on top of our audit process, or maybe our traditional audit process. The most significant for you, many of them of these areas are either not applicable because you are not a primary government, but you're not a municipality. But the ones that are probably most significant to Clean Water Services is the budgeting. So we take a pretty hefty look at your budgeting and making sure all the T's were crossed and the I's are dotted. And then also your contracting. So contracting has got a heavy influence. We also look at things like insurance. We can't hold ourselves out for adequate assurance, but insurance, but we make sure that you have it and have followed the process in line with the statutes. That report will be held at the very, very back of your financial statements. And then it's a little bit different looking of a report because it talks to the areas we looked at and whether we had any compliance findings within. That will be issued alongside your ACFR, your comprehensive financial report. As a part of that, Kathy will also be responsible for providing a summary of revenue and expenditures to the state once we've issued. That's due within 30 days of us issuing our opinion upon the financial statements. And we provide our audit number or my municipal audit. I have to be, in order to sign your opinion, I have to be an Oregon municipal auditor. So that is something that is the additional CPE that we get every single year. To the end of the audit, we will also, and we probably should change the term one of these days, Kathy, from a management letter, that's the old terms, to those charged with governance letter. This is a letter of the required communications that we need to make with you as those charged for governance. At the end of the day, we do work for CWS's audit committee, and we need to give you as much information, probably more information than you'd want to know on the audit process. So we will be doing that, and as Kathy already alluded to, we will have a secondary meeting after the completion of the audit or when we know our final results. We will fill you in on anything that you want to know about the audit process. And then we will issue, at the issuance, once we've issued the opinions, we will also issue a written letter, but we will talk through that all prior to you getting that letter. And then we are expecting, from time to time, that last piece, the uniform grant guidance, from time to time, if you've expended over $500,000, oh, nope, it's 1 million, sorry, over 1 million, that was old, over $1 million of federal funds, then you'll have to complete a federal audit. In this type of entity's case, it usually just comes in every once in a while, most likely due to FEMA expenditures. However, there are other federal programs out there A lot of them have been stripped over the last 12 months or 7 months. So there's not a whole lot of granting activity outside of FEMA, and even FEMA is struggling to get funded. So we're not expecting to see one this year, or no, we already know we're not going to see one this year. You haven't expended the federal funds, but we could in any future years all well. So we like to keep that on the table. Any questions on the deliverables before I move forward? Perfect. You're going to get a lot of, if you like to print, you're going to get to kill a tree in the process of all the deliverables for sure. Next part, I want to just talk a little bit about our audit approach. So we did complete in mid-June the interim portion. What that is essentially is that's our planning, that's our risk assessment, that's us looking at internal controls, that's us learning the current environment so that we can set our audit plan for our final, which is the substantive part of our work. So that is probably 75% of our work will come later. As we got through our controls, we found, we got up to date on what has been occurring during the year. We ask for certain information, and then we'll populate what we call our portal for the required information prior to us coming back on site. We also do a fraud and risk assessment. So that is just something, and again, what all this information does is helps us plan or assist us in planning our audit approach in the future. We are set for final field work the week of October 6th. We will be on site for most of the days. I think we keep a day off site, but we are traditionally on site for this work. And then you can see what we do is we perform all the remaining testing from our audit areas. So that's where we get really kind of down with all the financial numbers. At that time too, we'll have a draft of the financial statements that I will start working through with management just to make sure that all the compliance requirements are met and everything matches our audits. And then at that time, we will also conduct an exit conference with management staff just to make sure we're all on the same page. And then what we generally like to do is for every week outside the audit until we issue those opinions, we will have a meeting with management just to make sure that any open items are getting ticked off the list and we're going to meet the deadlines that we put forth in front of you today. If at any point in time as we're going along this process, anything goes outside of what I'm telling you right now, like if we run into a problem or anything, what we generally do is we will contact, Kathy will know about it. So, and Michelle, you're gonna get as of 10 minutes ago, you're gonna get the call. But we'll contact the audit committee chair and let them know what's going on, and then how form a plan of dissemination. So if you're not hearing from us, it's because it's all going along plan. We might find things during the audit that we'll present to you at the end, but if it was something significant that we thought you needed to know right away, we commit that we will have that communication plan to you immediately. At the end of this audit approach is the conclusion of it. These are the dates that we have all agreed on and are running for. So our goal is to have the financial draft statement. And that means that it's been through management's review and it's been through our review. So it's ready to go to the county in draft form. They need that information to do their work on their ACFR. We're hoping, not hoping, we're going to November 30th delivery date. And maybe, if we can get it even earlier than that, we'll try. Maybe we can shoot Kathy for trying for before Thanksgiving, but there is a tremendous amount of work that has to be done with the teams from the October date to the November 30th date. And then we'll do complete a presentation with you. We'll walk through all the audit results, what we found, what our significant risk areas were. We do something called fraud inquiries. So these are inquiries from throughout the entire organization. If anything comes up with those, we'll be able to report that out at that time and then answer any questions that you might have. And then a board presentation. I like to steal my own, usually it's slides and I talk about something way earlier than I should have waited for. I forgot that we put the concept of materiality so late, but I've already talked about the concept of materiality. So it's important to understand that also both the qualitative and the quantitative feed into our audit work. So a lot of times on a significant risk area, we'll drive our numbers down just because the qualitative risk is higher. So I think that's an important process. The other part that I think is important in an audit process is it's a very iterative. We might go in with a plan. It's a very iterative process. So we might go in with a plan and we hope it all goes to plan, but nothing ever does 100%. So we will iterate as we go along. If we find something that increases our risk, we're not going to just ignore it because we didn't plan for it. So the audit is truly a fully moving monster all the way up until we take the draft stamp off and put our signature on the audit opinions. We've worked several years with Kathy and her team and know this process, but we'll continue questions and continue things all the way through the audit process. So that is what I had prepared for you. We always like to hear where the concerns of the committee are. We have been made aware we do know of what's going on within the organization, including the forensic report that's occurring. We will be provided that report once it is on the table and complete. And are getting day-to-day updates, or maybe not day-to-day, but week-to-week updates on where that is at. So that is something we know is on the radar that we're watching for from our perspective. So that's something on the fraud risks that we're taking a look at. But anything else or any other concerns from your perspective at this stage of the audit?
So Julie, the forensic audit, is that related to the captive insurance? Captive insurance expenses?
Or the expenses, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
it's specific to travel, training, and food for the district for fiscal years 22, 23, 24, and 25 through February 28th. So they're sampling in all those years.
And so Kathy, is the captive insurance run through your guys's financial system, or do you have another party that's in Hawaii who runs it?
Yeah, so Marsh is our management company, and they prepare all the financial statements related to Clean Water Insurance Company, our captive insurance, and it is audited by a separate auditor out of Hawaii Acuity.
Okay, so it doesn't run through your books. You just get information from them.
Yeah, we include their information in our consolidated statements. And so, in fact, if you look back at our consolidation, you can see them as a separate column there.
Mm-hmm.
You see sanitary, storm, and quick.
Yeah, I did see that. And so how do you, I realize you have another auditor. So how does Clean Water Services ever go in until now, do your own audit to make sure that those expenses are being run correctly by Marsh?
So we do quarterly reviews with them. So we meet with Marsh and review through the quarterly statements, comparable statements, ask questions. We're now down to year end where we're coordinating the audit effort with Acuity. So scheduling the dates for them to start field work and working through our year end accruals related to the captive. And the final thing we do is usually a review by an actuary of our final liabilities that would be booked at year end as part of it, the final trial balance for Acuity. But we are then involved, the audit occurs, and we're involved in the final exit of the auditor, any management comments or audit findings.
And can I just add real quick? So when we do, it's called under the group audit standards now. We have communications directly with Acuity. We send them information on request lists, but we don't look into, once they issue a final financial statement and represent to those numbers, we don't go into their books at all because they've already got that audit and it's set. We just want to make sure that what's sitting in that audit matches the columns on that financial statement. Sorry,
So,
Go ahead, Scott.
Go ahead, Scott.
The captive insurance audit is done by a firm in Hawaii.
Yes, a CPA firm in Hawaii.
And it's done to Hawaii standards? Is it done to the Oregon standard, and is there a distinction?
Hawaii. Well, Hawaii doesn't have any of their own standards. So it's done under
Okay.
AICPA, which is as well yours. They just don't have to add the additional Oregon minimum standards.
And then they have then, of course, Hawaii state regulated for insurance requirements.
And that's required by the state of Hawaii. So unless they have to be domiciled within the state of Hawaii. So there's very few audit firms outside the big four probably that actually can do these audits under state law.
So Kathy, can I jump in here and ask a question or two? I'm going to assume that everybody on this committee has a copy of the prior year Clean Water Services audit.
Probably the audited the statements themselves.
Right.
Mhm.
Right. Just as a comparative. Okay.
Yeah. Mhm.
I would, and regarding Quick, would it be important, I guess, for this committee so that they understand the relationship of Quick with CWS to get a copy of that audit? I have read that audit. It's a very complex report. You have to, for me, I had to read it 2 or 3 times just to make sure I understood the footnotes and how the whole thing works. So how does that play into your report, Julie? Do you footnote that relationship? Because obviously it's a related party relationship. So do you footnote that? Do you footnote premiums paid? Any of that information in this report?
Yeah, so under the current GASB standards, we have to assess whether this should be considered a component unit, a blended component unit, or if it's nothing. There's a lot of entities that just aren't. So what we have determined, what everybody has determined, is that this is considered in a separately stated discrete component unit. It means that there's enough of a relationship between the two that we want to show it on the financial statements, or we need to show it on the financial statements. But instead, because the management teams don't run Quick and for some other reasons, we don't want to blend it into the operations of CWS, because that would seem like they're kind of the same managerial entity, which they're not. And so how the standards do that is it's a separately stated line item. So you'll see the 3, columns, and Quick being its absolute own discrete. And then in note, I believe 1, or the beginning of note 2, to those financial statements, we discuss exactly what the relationship is between Quick and all the required disclosures of the Quick financials that's required in that disclosure.
Okay.
And then there's some other information in your pension notes that has some additional premiums and information in there as well. It's kind of dispersed a little bit because of the way GASB requires reporting.
Yeah. And I don't know, I don't want to blend the two. So Kathy, you can tell me to hit the pause button on this, but it is important, I think, that we understand the relationship, why we have an insurance company, and how that interacts with Clean Water Services and their operations. And just so it's just an overview of that information, but I thought to me, it was very informational to see Quick's financial statements. And then lastly, Julie, we have obviously at the county and just about every governmental entity, we're dealing with federal guidelines now on what qualifies for grant money. Do you lean into that in your audit process to talk about how much money Clean Water Services gets federally, if there's any risk there? I mean, I don't expect you to make a risk assessment, but I mean, do you highlight that as well? As that part of your audit?
So if Clean Water had expended over $1 million worth of funds, that's that uniform grant guidance audit. There's a separate audit that's done that's attached to the back of yours. It used to be 500,000, moved to 750 a couple years ago, and it moved to $1 million this last year. So, which is actually sounds like a lot, but it's really not with what the federal government's loaning down. I mean, a million's a pretty low threshold. It maybe gets us out of some of the FEMA storms, potentially, but any large grant. As far as what you're, yeah, absolutely. On the granting, we've been on a roller coaster for the last 10 months with the granting and everything that's been changing with the federal government, and just the lack of where everything was looking really exciting about getting some infrastructure put into play, and then that the brakes, I wouldn't even say the brake, I think they went straight into reverse from 55 miles an hour. So we're not seeing a lot of granting out there. What we see a lot of promises behind the scenes, we're not seeing actuality. We're not seeing money leaving the federal government in the form of grants in our space right now. And even drying up on the FEMA side. So yes, so we would absolutely have those conversations. We did some training for the group. Oh gosh, Kathy, it probably needs to be redone because it was a long time ago. But
Let's-
when the group was looking at getting some significant grants, we came in and did some internal controls training and just talking about how, what could go wrong with a federal audit, because a lot can go wrong if you don't have all the controls in place that you need to have in place. So that is something that we continually talk about as things happen. But right now, there's been no activity this last fiscal year.
Yeah, and I think probably lastly is, and then I'll shut up, is that in our most recent budget that we just passed with Clean Water Services, there's a $75 million bonding option in there. Obviously, bonding, and as you pointed out, the balance sheet is where the meat of the information is, because there's so many assets and so much money invested in assets. So that bonding potential, I'm guessing that you may weigh in on that as well.
Yes. And then we also look from the standpoint of once that if the bond is out and cash comes in right away, there's always stipulations in a bond to say what you can spend it on. We track that and test that extremely closely. We test all the all the debt covenants associated with that bond. Anything that you said you were going to do as a part of that bond, we will test, and then the maintenance after that. So yeah, that's something we look at quite heavily. Also, we usually get a copy of it in draft form ahead of time too, just to see if there's anything we see, or if potentially in this space you used to have to do consents, a lot of consents. That's pretty much dried up and gone away for most bonds, but we still like to take a look at it.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thanks, Kathy.
Now I have a couple more questions. So Kathy, does Clean Water Services have its own grant policy, or do you use the county's policy, or is such a creature exist?
I don't know that we have a formal written grant policy. We did hire a new grant coordinator who started with us this year, so it will be great. I'm sure that's one of her tasks at hand is putting a written policy together, but also she'll be the key person that helping with that training and working with finance on making sure we're handling grants appropriately. Finance has usually been the holder of the overall grant management as far as getting copies of the grants when they're awarded, managing the disbursement, like payments out and through a project number, and submitting in for reimbursement under the grant itself, and then tracking the grant and reporting it on a CFA as part of our audit. But yeah, we do need to get some written policies on that.
And I know with us right now, as people are applying for grants or departments are applying for grants, we're evaluating whether we even want to apply based on the attestation that's coming. So do you guys have a process in place for that right now, or are you actively applying for grants at the moment?
I believe we're going to start actively applying. Federal grants have not really been our biggest area in the past. Really, it was ARPA and CARES that kind of got us in the audit realm because of the volume there. Prior to that, we really haven't had a lot of federal audit activity. But now with a new coordinator in place, I'm assuming our mission is to look for more federal monies, and so we definitely do need to get more formal processes put in place.
Michelle, you're speaking to my heart on the authors. We had a client not too long ago that got into a $15,000 grant and put themselves over the threshold and cost the organization about 60,000 in grant and audit and compliance fees. So just, yeah, especially if I love the fact that you're hiring a grant person just to make the decisions in a more singular, because that's another big issue is if Tom over here and Dave over here and Julie over here is all into grants and nobody knows what the compliance requirements or if you even can do the compliance requirements. It's a great idea. You're speaking to my auditor heart. It grew.
And the debt is that going to be revenue bonds that you're going to plan on issuing?
Yeah, so we're monitoring our capital spend this year. We have 3 years of really high capital program and anticipated. So we're monitoring where we're at mid-year. We're going to try to issue after we have our financials completed for 25 so that we have, current statements. So we're going to look to do that $75 million revenue bond. And then we're also going to look to refund our Build America bonds, the 2010 bonds, just to get out from under the federal requirements and the possibility of loss of funding.
And one more question. Since you've already done some interim, were there any significant changes to your internal controls or your processes or your softwares or anything like that?
No, not this year. No new debt issuances, no real changes in internal controls. We did add a process in this year based on the recommendation of the auditors of reviewing vendor ads and removing vendors that haven't been used in an extended period of time from the system. So we did implement that.
So Julie, one question. As you know, we have had a changeover of CEO. We have an acting CEO right now. We're going to go out into the market in the next 6 or 8 months to do this. Does any of that come into play in your audit?
So as far as the CEO is concerned, we part of it comes into our independence and client acceptance processes, because whenever a key member of management leaves, we need to document why. And this one did go a little further than a lot of them go, because a lot of them are retiring through, just regular retirement or leaving for retirement purposes. So we cleared that through our new client acceptance and what we're going to do about it. What probably anytime key member management changes or shifts, what we look for is, the whys behind it. We look for where their access to financial reporting where could they really lean in on the access to financial reporting. And so different procedures just dependent on who changes. We also look over security and access to systems. So that is something that we bulk up just to make sure they were cleared off systems, both physical and electronic, in a timely fashion, and make sure that they don't have any access anywhere into the systems that could cause any harm. So those are generally where we stand. With the CEO change, I will say your CEO did not have access to your financial systems, other than, what was being talked about in the forensic reporting and decision making. We haven't seen any, we don't have a history of seeing any strange contracts coming through, any strange related parties coming through. I will say the quick, when that came through, that's something that a lot of entities are looking at these captive insurance, because it's actually saving quite a bit of money for a lot of the insurance, a lot of the external insurance costs. So that wasn't a unique transaction from that, just really in the industry. But we do look at those types of contracts, what was signed and, just before leaving, those types of procedures will be done.
Okay, thank you.
And did I say that? I think I said it. We did clear our continuance procedures. That's already been cleared through.
And one thing on this, so we have two GASBs we're going to be implementing in 25. One is GASB 101, which is value and compensated absences. And the real change there is that we will be adding a value related to our sick leave here at the district that normally they don't vet, the employee does not vest, but we'll be reporting then an anticipated use, short-term and long-term, related to that sick leave, in addition to our other regular vacation and compensated absences. And then GASB 102, which is the risk disclosure. So going in and looking at potential areas of like if you're dependent on one customer in particular, or you have some regulatory risks, just looking for areas that should need to be disclosed in our statement. So we'll be meeting with our different groups as we finalize the notes on any disclosure we might need to do under that. And we had met previously with Julie and showed her our work papers and our methodology for GASB 101, and she was in alignment with that. So we're moving forward with that.
Yeah. And if anybody has any pull with the GASB, they could slow down any day. We would really appreciate it because they are on an absolute tear. And I will say it's not a very, for business entities, it's not a very fair tear because they're really focusing on liabilities over assets. So you're having to bulk up your liabilities, but you certainly don't get to show your assets, especially capital plant, at anything other than historical cost. So it is a little bit of a dynamic that's going on out there right now.
So yeah, and we'll certainly address that just as soon as we slow down the executive orders, okay?
Yeah, exactly.
So
Exactly.
right after that, we'll get right on that.
Now I have an East Coast. I have a Washington energy team, and the only unfortunate thing being on the West Coast is every day morning when I wake up, I've already got like 6 texts and a bunch of instant messages. And did you see what the president did last night? And it's just, yeah, it's not like, it doesn't make you want to jump out of bed and say hello to the day. Right. Cover your head and go back to sleep.
So Kathy, is your sick leave banks, they're separate from your vacation and your comp and all of that? Do you have a cap on your sick, or is your cap
Yes.
unlimited?
No, there's no cap on sick.
Mhm.
You accrue 8 hours a month, and there is no cap that there is on vacation.
Okay. Looking at the agenda, I think, Julie, you went over the fraud discussion.
Yes, that's what we just, oh, and I guess the last piece I wanted to say is my contact information is here. At any, if there's any member of the audit committee that wants to chat with me during the course of the audit, that's great. I will say it is important. We don't work for one singular member of the audit committee. We work for the audit committee as a whole. So conversations will, but I'm happy to answer anything about the audit, anything about our process, or call an additional, call Michelle and say we need to talk as a larger group. But I'm happy to have that, and that's a clear path to me. So feel free to give me a call if you need anything.
Yeah, and I
go
guess
ahead.
I would prefer in the chain of command of things, and this is because this is my philosophy as a commissioner, as a director. I try and stay in the chain of command, so I go to Kathy before I go anywhere else. So if any one of the committee has any questions or concerns or whatever the case is, if we could vet them through Kathy first, I think that would be the best course of action. And you can do it through the entire committee, but certainly we need to touch base with Kathy first.
Yeah.
Unless Kathy is our concern.
Yeah.
We want to talk to you, Kathy.
And Michelle, I think you just got the nod for this, but we usually try to have these are part of our fraud interviews of just a conversation with an audit committee member. And we usually choose somebody, but I would guess that you're going to be chosen this year. I wanted to wait to say that till after you guys had chosen a chair because you might have changed your mind.
That is fine. And
we'll work through Kathy to reach out to you to find time.
I know the county has a fraud and ethics hotline. Is Clean Water Service part of that, or do you have your own?
So Jerry, we now have our own line, right? And that's not just specific to internal staff, correct?
Yeah, it's not a fraud line necessarily. It's just a complaint line. So yeah, we have spun CWS on, so they have their own complaint line versus the counties. So yeah, it's we're trying to, over the past year, the Board of Commissioners have been trying to put more of a bright line between CWS and the county, just because CWS is a very viable entity in itself. And sometimes it gets hidden underneath the shadow of the county, and we're trying to make sure that that doesn't continue to happen. So we're starting to have Clean Water Services Board of Director meetings independent of the county. Whereas historically, the county has put out an agenda and, oh yeah, here's our consent agenda, and half of them would be Clean Water Services items. Now we're trying to, again, like I said, a bright line there to make basically Clean Water Services stand on its own. The ratepayers are demanding that. Our cities are wanting that. So it's a very different environment, I guess, between the county and CWS. And I think that's why we have this audit committee, because we want to, again, this is another one of those bright line differentiations. This is not about the county we're talking about. This is about Clean Water Services.
So a couple of quick questions on the complaint line. So I guess I would be a little concerned if you're not also baking in the fact that it could be a fraud line. You may be deterring people from actually making the call. Second question is this where are the calls going? Do you contract with a third party, or is this are the calls coming back to Clean Water Services, or some are more local, if you will?
Kathy, I'm going to let you audit that, or
Ooh.
respond to that. But it is an independent organization. We have contracted with a third party because, again, when you have an anonymous complaint line like the county does, it's very important what the policy and procedure is to handle those complaints. To give some confidence of the person who's calling in that they're not putting themselves at risk. And it's going to be handled in a very independent way. So, yeah, we've tried to be very diligent about setting that up.
Perfect. Thank you.
The link to that on your website? I'm on your Clean Water Services website and I'm not seeing I see a report a problem, but I don't see a report are you using Navex for your fraud and your hotline?
Bruce, do you know which company we're using on that? I have not been involved directly in that because it
We're
doesn't.
using a company that was recommended by one of the commissioners or one of our board members, and I think it might be the same one the county uses. We also, it's not on our website, but at this point, what we've done is we've basically rolled this out to our employees, but not the general public. So, and the way it works is whatever reports are taken by this third party that we've contracted with, those are submitted directly to our board.
Yeah, we're trying to what we did it is because we lost a lot of not only public trust, but employee trust in this whole process. We're trying to regain that, and primarily we're starting with our internal trust environment. So we're asking our employees if there's any concerns, any questions, to please let us know. It's actually been very quiet. So, which has been a good thing. But at least having that opportunity available to the employees, I think, is a great answer to the dilemmas that we've been having. We probably would not put that out for public access because, again, that's opening a whole Pandora's box there. And amazingly, you know, just to go off audit, sorry, Julie, I don't mean to do this, but we have been through quite a process in the last several months on this spending and this forensic audit now that we have going on. We've tried to be very transparent. Kathy and her team has done a lot of work of providing public information to the media and certainly now to our auditors. So again, we're trying to take the high road on everything that we do in this, and this complaint line was just one of them. But again, it was pretty much intended to be internal.
I'm looking at the county. So the county uses the same company that Hillsborough does, which is Ethics Points. Navix is the company. I'm actually an administrator on, because we have it internally. So do you have an internal person that's administrator of your system? So who set it all up then?
So it's going directly to the board. The communications are going to the board, and district staff would not be involved in responses to those.
Mhm.
We
But
do have.
someone still has to be an administrator on
Yes.
Yes, I
the
don't know
system.
I don't
I
know
can
if,
respond to that, Kathy.
Oh,
okay.
For purposes of managing the software, so to speak, of this company, we do have two internal administrators. I'm one of them, and the other one is Stephanie Morrison.
Mm.
So throw another hypothetical out. So if a member of the public had a credible quotes issue, how would that be routed?
That starts through the board of directors.
Same.
Yeah,
Okay.
it comes through us, and because we have the same issues at the county, so if there's complaints, they come through the board of directors. There's a director website that they can go to, an email, and then that's distributed to all of the directors. So yeah, it's kind of, from my standpoint, it's a clunky process. If somebody wants to really reach out to me and they go into the Board of Commissioners website and send me an email, it takes a while to get through that. So, but in this particular situation, we do have quicker access and we get that information. Like I said, there hasn't been a lot of activity, so that's been a good thing from our standpoint.
But I know the district has discussed putting a hotline in place. And I know the intention is to at some point, but this was an initial start, and it was really, I think, as Jerry mentioned, a focus on touching base with the staff of the district for the board.
Yeah, and from the county standpoint, again, we have a person whose sole responsibility is to monitor that email inbox, to distribute those emails, and to report out every Friday. We get a report of every email constituent complaint or comment or whatever the case is. And so that's probably the same direction we'll be going with Clean Water Services.
Mm-hmm.
You can tell this is an area that's near and dear to my heart because I unfortunately live this at my job all the time. So let me ask you this. So if a complaint happens to come in, Bruce, are you and your team actually following up on the item, or how is that being handled?
We have not been asked to follow up on the item. At this point, the board directive has been just forward these reports to us. And so that's what we've done. I think it's also important to point out that this was established on very short notice, and it's intended to be kind of a temporary arrangement. We do intend to have a full-fledged hotline that will be available to the public as well as our employees in the future. That will require policy development, just like the county has policies for this sort of thing, and that's to come. So at this point, what we have in place was done as kind of a very quick slapdash thing.
I appreciate the background. Thank you so much.
Looks like we're at the end of our agenda. Does anyone else? Scott, you have questions?
Yeah, I have a couple of I guess they're procedural questions. I'm unclear who are the voting members of the audit committee and what constitutes a quorum?
So the voting members include Jerry is a representative of the board. You, Scott, Michelle, and Pete are the voting members. Myself and Bruce are not voting members of the committee. And a quorum would be a majority of the 4 that are here now.
So a quorum's 3. Okay. Well, I'm asking for public meetings, serial communications issues. So I wanted to clarify that piece. And so that's communications go through you. And all right, that's helpful.
Well, that's a great question.
I spent a lot of my day job trying to sort out Oregon's public meetings law. So,
well, and we focus a lot on that as well. So I guess the question would be, Kathy, is this a public meeting? Do we have to notice it? And okay.
Yes. So it was a public meeting.
Was there a means for the public? Sorry, was there a means for the public to view this?
Yes, via Zoom.
Okay.
So we noticed it on our site and had the agenda 72 hours in advance of the meeting, and then set it up as a Zoom. And then there'll be minutes from this meeting that are available also, and the recording.
As much as we love this audit committee, when you throw out, hey, do you want to join the audit committee? It's like, no, I think I'm busy, I don't know, watching paint dry or something. And so no offense, Julie.
I was gonna say we're really exciting people deep down somewhere not in this room.
I can tell you there was a reason I went into the tax side of things versus the audit side of things. I'm just saying, but
my son just went to the dark side too. So he's at Gonzaga University and he's getting his master's in tax. And I'm like, you're going to the dark side. So.
Do I need to send him a note saying go team? Yeah, let's
exactly.
do that. Yeah, it's a lot more exciting. But anyway, we digress. Sorry. Chair Michelle, take this thing over, will you?
Okay. Does anyone have any more questions regarding what's going to happen, what we're doing? So I'm assuming we'll meet sometime in December then to receive the financial statements and hear how your audit went, and hopefully it goes smoothly. Did you have any sort of findings in your 23-24 audit? I haven't had a chance to review it that year.
23-24. This is the kind of stuff I should be prepared for. And so yes, we did last year. We did. That was other development last year. The development finding.
It was the donated infrastructure.
Yeah.
There was a misvaluation of a piece of donated infrastructure.
Yes.
So we had to move it out of donated and into the construction costs of the asset.
Yeah, it's when they do the so a large project that then has to either move a road or move other things, that there's usually the entirety of the project's done, but then you don't want to maintain a road. A road's probably a terrible example, but so you donate the property over to, or that road over to whatever entity is going to be maintaining it. There was just some calculation issues that we found on a significant one last year.
And this was in particular a bridge. So it was the Park Bridge that when they did the allocation based on list of values, they had miscalculated on it.
Yeah. So we will from time to time, and we will go through, Michelle, all of those at, you know,
Mhm.
any of the findings. And there's different findings that we can have. You know, some we want to also we want a value added piece of this audit for the management team too. So if we see best practices, if we see, we'd like to tell them everything about little stuff. So that it never becomes the big stuff if we find during the course of our audit. So we can classify that as there's a lot of verbal comments that will go back to management that just don't raise to the and then there's ones that we want to make sure to bring in front of the audit committee, but we can go over any of those and kind of what we're seeing during our final session.
Yeah, and I would say that one thing that's impacted the district over the last few years is that we have a lot of new staff, young in their career, new in the organization. And so there, you know, with that comes a lot of training and oversight piece of it. So that's been kind of that challenge too, as we add staff to the group.
I guess really quickly, turnover at Clean Water Services, has it been an issue?
Not in my group, you know, for the longest time, we had a really stable, like 10-year and more, highly knowledgeable group in finance. And then they started retiring, and we started getting some younger people in the group. And we've added new positions, which were much needed in the group. But we have seen some level of turnover, retirements, and then also just people moving on the other job opportunities. So we have seen a little more movement in our group in the recent past than before. So yeah, definitely a challenge in staffing for the need of the positions and the workload, but then also that training and oversight that has to happen.
Appreciate it.
Kathy, have you seen any difference now that you guys have moved a little bit further in? They were also, I mean, beautiful building. If you'd been to the Clean Water, it's the best treehouse office we go to, but it's a jaunt. It's a
Yeah,
jaunt. And we would hear
you know,
that constantly, like, oh, I wanted to apply for this position, but I'm not willing to drive all the way out there all the time. So
yeah, you know, it's funny, the challenge has been that for some of the people in my group, this was a worse location for them because we had
oh,
one individual who left who lives in Oregon City. And so surprisingly, getting to the Hillsborough location was easier than getting here to right off of Highway 26 in Greenbrier, in
interesting. Yeah.
Beaverton. Yeah. So, but it just depends on the people, because we have a lot of people who live down Forest Grove and Hillsborough area. And so for them, that this is a worse commute.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you talking about the location out at 219 Jackson Bottom?
Yeah, so Jackson Bottom, our ABC building.
Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes that was a challenge because of the commute for people that were coming over from Portland or other parts of the metro area, because it is quite a drive. But then here at Central, it's now a drive for people that lived in, you know, Forest Grove and Hillsborough to drive over.
Yeah, but you don't have the bugs and the animals coming out of the wetlands to come in
Yeah.
to visit you and stuff like
Yep.
that. I mean,
No, and
there's
we're
a trade-off here.
There totally is, and we're really close to a lot of you know, restaurants and stores and shops and gas stations on your way home. Yeah, so it's a nice location, but it doesn't, everybody has it doesn't benefit everybody.
There was a McDonald's right by or pretty close.
Oh, yeah. Just had to get off of Highway 219 into Hillsborough. Yeah.
Are you back to 5 days a week, or how many days are you in now?
No, we still have a telecommute policy that has requires 2 days in the off, minimum 2 days in and 3 days out. Yeah. We're looking to update that in to 3 in and 2 max out, but it has not happened yet. First, we had to work with the lack of space. So some of us moved over to Central early in order for them to free up some space at the ABC building. Yeah, so hopefully they'll transition towards that, because there is a disconnect that's there with only 2 days in the office.
Just a little jealous. We're 5 days, so I get it.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Oof.
Well, it looks like we've made it through the agenda. And I think if we don't have any more questions or any more comments, we can adjourn this wonderful meeting and let everyone go out to the sunshine.
Yay. Well,
Thank you.
thank you once again, everybody. I really appreciate giving your time and skills and knowledge to this group. I appreciate it.
Thanks.
Pleasure meeting you, everybody.
Thank
Thank you.
you.
Bye.
Bye now.
Bye-bye.